Thank you all for being here. The second panel is on the future of sound. What comes after music? Is it sound, noise, or perhaps something that registers on an entirely different register? Experimentalists and sound artists have long been translating their ideas beyond the traditional contours of music. For this panel, sound artist and writer Flora Yin-Wong, an experimental musician and DJ Nori Kin, aka Exploited Body, will discuss with me the practical and theoretical limits of sound in music as they're currently conceived and relate to their own practices. Just for some background on Flora and Nori, Flora is a London-based experimental sound artist and writer. Her debut album, Holy Palm, and 2023 follow-up, Cold Reading, were released by Modern Love. Her book, Liturgy, which is a constellatory work surveying multiple histories, traditions, and paradigms of perception, was co-published by Primary Information and Pan Records in 2021. Nori Kin is the Helsinki-based experimental musician behind Exploited Body, set to perform tonight at Club Kaiku. Having released through Pan, Posh Isolation, Northern Electronics, their own imprint Changeless, and worked with artists including Croatian Armor, Varg, and Iceboy Violet, Kin's output encompasses everything from ambient soundscapes to noise pop. Just as a first question, both of your music is quite anti-genre or unclassifiable in a lot of ways. I was wondering if you could both talk about the development of your current sound and whether you saw yourself belonging to any genres or particular scenes in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like personally a lot of the genres that I've worked through they're not that directly translatable to what I listen to or what I grew up with or influences or anything like that. I feel like it took me a long time to find something that I might consider, or people might consider as like my sound. But I think it took that time to realize that it's not about replicating things that you like or trying to replicate the world around you. It's just about, well, for me, it's more of an internal kind of process. But I guess I started out more kind of listening and like playing more like club music. And that's what I kind of first started trying to produce. But I found that it didn't really come that naturally to me. And then my kind of more niche interest into, I guess, what would be classified as like more like left field, like folk or like early music. I think that started to seep into a little bit more of the electronic sounds that I was building. So I think that kind of like dichotomy informed what I make now.
Yeah.
I think with me, it's always been kind of like very, I don't know, somehow very natural not to try and be in like a specific pocket of like a genre or a medium, like always kind of finding ways to be, always trying to kind of find ways to be in the margins of stuff in a way that kind of draws influences from like very unexpected sources, but then also like incorporating them in ways that you wouldn't sort of, if you gave someone else the exact same references and be like, make an album off of this, they'd make something completely different, because we all have our like own ways of like filtering the stuff that we perceive from the world. So I think with the way that I work, I'll hear something or see something, and then I'll just like, it'll just like bring up something else entirely not related to that, because ADHD and stuff. So I'll just kind of follow that path to whatever it takes me to, and then that becomes either like a song, an album, or maybe even just like a visual thing as well, or then just like a curatorial idea for like an event or something. And then that could be informed by this horse threesome, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that answered anything, but
It does. I mean, have there been like particular venues or like nights, for instance, that you feel like were fundamental in like creating your current sound, or like helped inspire you to shift things at times?
I mean, I think the first nights I was going to in London were the White Heat nights that were in Soho. And it was in a strip club that I think is now returned to being a strip club. And I guess the genre that at that time those people created was called like art rock, which is a terrible term, but I think it was very like, you know, it was very, very underground, like very small bands, like very small audiences. But and it's funny because now I try and look up like some of these records, and they're not even on like Discogs or they're not on YouTube. Like there's no way of like finding this music again, which is quite sad, really. But I feel like that really informed a lot of what I wanted to do. And I guess that when I was like 15, I like made my friends buy instruments and like start a band with me. Also really bad. And then, yeah, I think a bit later on I started going to club nights. Like there was like these CDR nights at Plastic People, showing my age. And also like Forward, like part of Rinse FM, they used to do these like quite regular nights at Dance Tunnel. And again, like really small capacity, like it would maybe be like a weekly thing on a Thursday. I think it was free entry. But they'd have just like insane lineups all the time. And it would be more kind of like informed from maybe like dubstep or grime kind of backgrounds, but then a lot of it would be pretty experimental leaning.
Yeah.
I think with me, it's like, or Helsinki in general hasn't really had that much like going on prior to like the past 10 years or so. I'd say in terms of like, I mean, we've had like Mika Bainio and like Pansonic, like all of these like legendary like electronic music projects that have been very experimental. But I think in the terms of like what it is now, or like what experimental music is now, I feel like it's that wave has like only kind of picked up like post SoundCloud. And then I feel like that has been my experience with this sort of scene that I've found myself in is through like online connections with people through like SoundCloud or Instagram or whatever. You're just like meeting people that enjoy the same things, and then you like kind of end up talking about stuff, and then it's like, hey, do you want to come and play our night in Czech Republic, for example? And then it's like, okay, let's go there, and then we just do something there, and then we meet other people there, and then that leads to something else. So I feel like formative Helsinki events, I don't think not that much, but I do want to say that there's this festival in Prague called Lunch Meat Festival, and we went there with you, and I'm not sure if, well, no one else who was there, but we went there with like a bunch of friends, like multiple years in a row, to just like see like these insane lineups that were literally just like playlists that we would have, or like records that I'd play, and then it's like, but they're all here, like in person. And then I think that was like very powerful. And I think one of the like more impactful like performances was actually by Louis Cornell, who used to work as Visionist before, and then seeing his like he just released his album Value in 2017, and then he played that live. And then I think that experience of like just being in a room, seeing like just people, or just like kind of thinking about that fact of people from all around coming to see this music that isn't like commercially viable in any capacity, to sort of inform and like influence the lives of like different communities outside of that. Like that would, like I would bring that with me to my city and my community, and then those experiences kind of live on through that. And then the dream of like, okay, like maybe we can make something like this happen one day, and like work through like doing something like establishing something like of our own in a way, so that it's not always like influenced from not being like, oh, this is the new Berlin, blah, blah, blah sort of narrative, and like trying to make something that's inherently like Helsinki in a way. I don't know if that's like somehow facetious to say, but I mean like just in terms of like not being like, oh, this is the X of Finland, or this is the blah blah blah, but like rather have like our own things that kind of spawn from here, and like are informed by our environments and like our stories and sort of everyday life. But no, yeah, not answering your question.
No,
but
you kind of did, yeah.
Just steer me whenever.
Sounds good. I mean, you used the term left field earlier, and I feel like both of your music could be classified as left field. I'm curious, with your current sound, whether there are like particular limitations that you come up against in terms of like physical venues to perform in, or maybe record labels or like industry structures, and how you navigate those things with what you want to achieve with your sound.
Yeah, I do feel like there's an expected kind of trajectory for artists for all artists, I guess, across all genres. But I think it's weird in experimental music because by the nature of it, it's experimental, and I don't think it's supposed to reach like a kind of mainstream. But I do feel like, in recent years that kind of crossover has been having much more, it's like becoming way more common. And, you'll see like what were previously very experimental producers are now producing for like huge like R&B and pop stars, which is great. But I think it's a bit more delineated than that, because I feel like my route has become like it's leaning more and more towards, I guess, like sound art rather than like deconstructed club music, post SoundCloud era type way, which I think is like, I don't know if it was to do with like the pandemic or what, but I think people who are making club music or electronic music ended up making ambient music, and I feel like, and also I don't know, like the YouTube algorithm overlords or something, like someone was putting a lot of these like old Japanese ambient kind of albums to the fore, and I think that ended up influencing a lot of people that were making that previously quite like I guess more dance music. After the pandemic, I think like maybe there was another kind of like reversal of that, where people just wanted to make like gabba and hardcore, like just extreme kind of like high tempo like release kind of music. But as I said, I try not to be too kind of like conscious of what is happening like in terms of like scenes or like music wise, and just kind of like follow what is happening internally as a response to those things, maybe, or not as a response to those things. Yes, I think, I felt a lot of pressure. I think in the last couple of years, I started doing more like spatial sound. So I went to the INA GRM Institute in Paris, and then to the EMS Institute in Stockholm. And I feel like both of these are really, really prestigious places for like that kind of, I guess, like music concret, and a lot more like institutionally kind of like recognized, like, I guess it's more of an academic kind of background to music, which I don't really have. So I felt like that kind of like legitimized some of what I felt like I was making. And I thought that kind of felt more comfortable for me at the moment. But then I do still get, like I still prefer, or like I still have fun like going to clubs and listening to like DJs play like bangers. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've thought about the same kind of trajectory that a lot of experimental artists have had, where it's like they've started like pretty much entire scenes and genres on their own, and then they've kind of transitioned into pop stars, or then like ended up producing for pop artists, and then it kind of I don't know, it just kind of somehow feels like it rids the. I'm not like a purist or anything, but I feel like it kind of like rids the music of its like potential of like actually reaching the broader audience with said sound. Like you will reach like a certain point, you get released like this like massive label, you really release like an album that's like super weird and like experimental, pushes the boundaries of what people were expecting, and the fact that you are being asked to collaborate with like more contemporary pop artists shouldn't be a signifier to become them in a way. Like I think that's like a sign like your sound is working, like you can push that. Like the fact that like Rosalia has connected with Arca should be like a sign that you can actually push this a lot further, as opposed to being like, oh, maybe I should cash in on this. Yeah. And I feel like that's like maybe like a post-pandemic thing as well. Like people obviously have bills to pay, and like a lot of money lost during the pandemic from lost shows and delayed records and whatever, and health issues that have sort of come up through that as well. So I think it makes sense, and I'm always like happy that people do what they need to do, whether it's artistically or survival wise. Yeah. But I think it's like a thing that I personally feel really strongly about is not sort of caving to expectations in that way, where it's like, if you manage to get into a space, or I have this, like, I tell this to everyone that I talk to about, like, performing or especially like DJing, but in terms of like just creating stuff, is like, if you get booked to play a show and then you play music that you don't want to play because you're like trying to cater to the said audience, and then you don't get booked again because it didn't really click because that's not your thing, then it's like, I'd rather not get booked again because of what I want to play than something that I didn't want to play. Because then it's like, well, what if I would have done what I wanted to do? Like, because then it's like, then it's like my honest truth. And then it's like, if that's not something people want, then it's like, I can't change that. I can't change who I am in that sense. So I just kind of rather do that. So I feel like if I'm not being booked to play festivals or released by labels or whatever because my sound is too whatever, then it's like, good.
Make peace with that.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit both about like some of the like individual themes in each of your practices. I was reading Liturgy, your book, and one of the things I was struck by is you write a lot about these figures across Buddhist and Chinese and Japanese traditions who kind of bend perception in a lot of ways. We talked about the Guanyin figure who, there's a quote that you included about how she looks down upon sound. And there's all these moments in the book where you mention mudras or other rituals or traditions where essentially the senses are kind of confused or switched over in a way. I'm curious if you could talk about some of the historical or like traditional figures or examples that you look to for your practice in the way that you envision sound.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these figures aren't necessarily, I don't like personally, I feel like they're very indoctrinated in general kind of maybe Asian culture, but I wouldn't say like, I mean, personally, I'm not a religious, I don't prescribe to a specific religion, but I feel like a lot of my work is quite syncretic. And I do feel like drawing from certain themes across different religions and different cultures is something that really interests me, because I guess it's like on a kind of Jungian kind of scale, it's like these archetypes that kind of just go across history, and you do see all these similarities. So I think like Guanyin is, I guess she's kind of like, she's a household name in Chinese communities because she's kind of like the Virgin Mary. So people often have like statues of her at home, and she's supposed to be, she's the goddess of mercy. But I think in her initial incarnation, I think she first comes from like in Indian and Hindu and Buddhist, that side of Buddhism. I think her, or their name, because I think in that incarnation they were male, and they were Avalo, Kita, Savra, which I think Savra meant sound, and then Guanyin, yin in Mandarin, and then the Cantonese version yum being sound. So there's all these different translations of the name, but it's often the one who perceives all the sounds of the world, and the history of that kind of deity was that because she was the goddess of mercy, she didn't have enough heads to listen to all of everyone's prayers and everyone's suffering in the world. So Buddha ended up splitting her heads into 11, so she had 11 heads, and then she also was then given like 1,000 arms to reach out and help all the creatures on earth. And I like the idea of like that heightened sense of perception, like imagining having this extreme sense of everything at the same time. And I think that sounds like a very transcendental / like psychedelic experience for people as well, when you're like, I get synesthesia sometimes, so it does feel like, you know, you're experiencing all the senses in a kind of crossover way. And it's so momentary, and also for me it does really like, suddenly you just feel the world in a way that is out of your own usual perception, and I think that's something that very few people can kind of, I guess, replicate in other senses in terms of like film or art or music. But that's something I try to play with. Anyway.
Yeah. And
That
then,
also sounds like ADHD,
Yeah, also.
the 11 heads.
Yeah.
and then, I mean, your music also like pushes perception or sound in particular, mainly with noise. But we had talked about this, but like the name of your project, Exploited Body, I think also touches on this link between like sound and haptics, or the body, or the way that sound can unfold not just auditorily, but it can unfold literally on the way that it impacts our body.
Yeah.
Which is a big discourse in like sound and music theory right now. I'm curious if there's a way that you like see sound. Like, do you see it as more of a felt thing, or how do you register it and see it in your own practice?
I do think of it like there's like a very strong sense of like sonics and just how stuff sounds, but I do feel like it's kind of like if there's like you have your ears and then it goes in and then it like hits your brain. I kind of feel like that's like a haptic thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or like the eardrum is a physical thing that gets impacted by the vibrations. I don't know. Something like that. But I feel like the physical impact of music is very crucial to sort of, or I often feel like I want to be enveloped by the music if I'm like seeing a performance, or like I don't want to hear it. I don't want to just hear it and like not feel the physical sound waves. And I think that's like a big part of why the music that I do is like kind of pushing all the frequencies at once kind of thing. Like it's very sort of, yeah, it's like very like brute force kind of thing of like even at minimal volume, you'll kind of have to experience that discomfort of like sort of sonic pressure or something like that. But I did like a project a couple years ago where I did like a sound design thing for this like performance, and then it was like in a garage, and then there's a lot of things going on. A garage, I was in a car with my laptop, like playing the sound, and then there was lights, and it was cool. And then the physical sound wave experience was the fact that the garage was like so large, so that if you walked within the space and then the subs were at the back of the space, and then when you walked, you could like literally feel the sound wave like dip in and out. So you could like, if you stood here, you could feel the sort of lowest sub resonation in the room, and then if you walked a little bit forward, you'd not hear it at all, and then you'd walk again, and then you'd like feel it again. Like, and I think that was like something that often doesn't get thought about in venues, like when you do like more like non-treated venues, like to sort of incorporate that more into like what, like we talked about this yesterday when we went to the church, like to incorporate the, like when you know you're doing an event, like booking stuff or like letting the artist know that, hey, you're going to play in like a room like this. It's like the reverb tail is this long, the windows resonated this hertz, or like whatever, like that you get all this information, and then you're like, okay, I can kind of like push that and like see what happens, see if I can like break the fucking windows or something.
Yeah.
Earth eater shit.
Yeah. Shatter glass.
Yeah.
Your voice. Yeah.
Not my voice. But bass.
Yeah. Are there like, I mean, I guess when you have ideas, when ideas are germinating, do you ever like feel like you have to transition out of sound to achieve those? I mean, you talked about like spatial design, for instance, and I guess with you also like engaging other mediums. Like, do sometimes things start as like an idea for sonics, but then you actually go into a completely different medium?
Sure. I think yeah, but I think it's more of like everything kind of starts as something else and becomes sonics for me. It's like I'm fairly limited in terms of like not having the concentration to pick up other stuff. And then it's like I've made music for almost 20 years now, so it's like I've kind of just done that. So it's like hard to experience the fact of not being good at something. Not saying I'm good at making music, but just the fact that I've spent so many years on it, it's like it's hard to start something that you've had like 0 years in.
Yeah.
Like doing some like video work or something. Like I've done some video stuff, I've done some like visual stuff, but it's like quite often I'll start with like this like very visual thing, and then it's like it ends up being like, oh, but how would that sound? Like how would I make, like how do I transfer that like visual image into sound, like in like a weird way, like kind of what I'd imagine like reading Braille probably is like. Like you're trying to translate this. I mean, it's literal words and stuff, but like the idea of like translating something into, or just writing a book in general. But I think with the haptic aspect of reading Braille as well, you kind of try to transfer something visual or something fully ideological and like, or even spiritual, and then you just like kind of compress it into this thing that you can just look at, and then that opens up in your head. So like how do I do that with the music that I'm making, is like how do I bring the sort of visual stuff that I'm thinking of, compress it into this song that's compressed as fuck, and then transfer that image to other people, and then seeing like how that image kind of distorts by the lens that the person is like experiencing it from. Like you'll hear people have like a completely different interpretation of stuff than what you initially had, and then just having the reaction of like, yeah, that's definitely was on the plate and on the menu when I was making this. So then you just kind of realize how little control you kind of have at the end of the day of like what gets translated to the listener or viewer of what you initially intended. And then if you take, and I also feel like if you start taking too much control of like that narrative as well, then it kind of rids that experience of like seeing stuff for yourself and like experiencing stuff for yourself. If it's like too, like I hate the fucking museum plaques. Like you see the threesome horse,
Didactic text.
and then it's like the 3 horses are the representations of each gender binary, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like this like A4, like just like a wall of text, and then it's like this just like robbed me of like any agency in terms of like interpreting it without feeling like it's like a rebellious act of like, oh, I'm not going to take that into account in my, I don't know, I'm just rambling now. Just, Flora, please.
Also, I'm curious to know if you think like image first sometimes.
I mean, it's funny because I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like I like having the context to things about someone's ideas of where it came from, so that I can understand all the layers that has formed that. Because, I feel like there's just so, I mean, there is like huge information overload right now with everything. But at the same time, I think it's like interesting to see each artist kind of like refine that and try and express certain things. And just kind of, that's my way of connecting to other people, I guess, is like through what they're trying to express. I mean, personally, I feel like I'm quite a non-vocal person. So I started out as a writer, so I feel like I find it a lot easier to kind of express my thoughts in the written word. I feel like writing comes very easily to me in a sense that maybe other things don't. So, and I love seeing the way that like words fit on the page, or the way that words sound together in various languages, and like how these things get lost in translation, and how different cultures have different words for things that might not exist in English. And I guess that forms a different side to what my sound is, I guess, because in terms of like the music that I'm making, it's not like lyrical or like very vocal. And again, it's just like this other kind of trajectory or like medium that those ideas are taking. So there is an overlap in terms of my work, in terms of like how writing and making sound and visuals might happen. But I mean, I think there is something about like relinquishing like the control as to like how other people are going to perceive it, because you might not see it a certain way. Like I remember playing at Issue Project Room in New York, and It was a really beautiful space, and it was the first time I did visuals, and I just made the visuals myself, and it was just like different photos or images that I'd taken over the years, and just put them together in like iMovie or something. And then someone at the end came up to me and just said, that was the scariest thing I've ever seen. And I was like, that's not what I was intending, but okay, but thanks, maybe. And yeah, I don't see my music as like scary or like imposing or like, you know, but it's weird that I think that is often something that I hear back is that they feel like it's like something maybe more ominous than maybe I intend.
Yeah. Do you appreciate that typically when people tell you their opinions unsolicited about your work?
I mean, I do, yeah, because it's interesting to hear what, like, you know, well, it's just more that I like that it elicits a response, right? Like, I'd rather he said that than, oh, that was nice, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that's also like interesting, the sort of viewing something as ominous. Like, I don't think I set out to make ominous music, like particularly, but it is very ominous and like very, or like I feel like I have a very skewed perception on what is like happy music in general. Like, I can't stand like the generally happy music that people sort of enjoy, and then it's like my happy is like like I'll play like a song. I was like, I think this is really happy, and then everyone's like, this is super melancholic and sad. It's like, but is it though? But I think in that interpretation, I feel like there's something like, for example, with like like we talked yesterday quickly about like the spectrality or like this like ethereal layer to it, and I feel like there's this like idea of, okay, this is fucking all right. Bear with me. So there's this idea in like understanding the world of like of magic in the sense that magic is just future technology not being understood by the people perceiving it. So like you'd see, if you'd never seen fire before, and then you just see someone like strike a few rocks and then like sparks and fire, and then you're just like, this, it's a fucking witch.
Yeah.
They haven't thought of burning her yet because they just saw fire, but eventually they will. And the thing with that is like, I feel like with the something feeling ominous is like the general fear of unknowing that humans have. So then it's like, I don't know what this is. Like, I don't recognize what this is, but so it's like automatically like a bit scary. But once you get familiar with it, then it's like, it doesn't feel ominous anymore. Like, I feel like I know the demons that I'm kind of fighting with and like sort of witnessing in that sense. So then it's like it becomes more familiar, and it becomes like more a comfortable space to experience music that people generally view as ominous, or like in general like art that feels super dark or sort of eerie or provocative in that sense. So maybe it's more of like getting to know the other side quite literally, and then seeing that it's just another form of existence kind of thing, and then it stops being scary. This was a crazy fucking tangent.
I mean, well, no, that's good. I mean, I'm wondering, for both of you, do you think that kind of unintelligibility or unknowing is important to like maintain this veil between the kind of spiritual themes in your work and the secular world, or like the world of people who don't understand it?
I mean, I'm not trying to be like obtuse on purpose. Like, I'm not, because it feels like there's a big kind of like edgelord kind of like vibe of like trying to be like, this is so weird and this is so unexpected, and like I'm not really trying to do that. But I think there is an element of, I don't know, I guess it's like trying to express this disconnection between like reality or like unreality, or these different kind of, yeah, like the veils between these experiences or perspectives. I don't know, some of the things, I mean, I was like looking at some meme the other day that was like, I'm sorry I didn't respond, I'm not real, or something. It's like, yeah, because sometimes I think you just kind of drift off into these worlds, and I think it's not really about like trying to alienate people. I guess it's more just expressing different experiences.
Yeah, I think the fact that memes memes can sort of translate stuff like that into, or the fact that meme culture has developed into this form where it's very obscure and like people in general have like a very good understanding of weird and like unintelligible stuff, probably because of the US president, for example. But like in general, like I feel like the discourse around like not fully getting something is like it's gotten better over time. Like it's like people are not that concerned with like I need to understand this fully, even though you see like plenty of comments under like videos of or like pictures of memes being like, please someone explain this, and then people are just like no. But I think like for me, I really sort of, because like I don't think I'm trying to be like specifically weird with stuff that I do, because a lot of stuff that informs my art is very random as well. Like on my last album, Here I Abandon, there's a song called Replacing a Scar with Another. Or did I just call it Replacing a Scar? That's the lyric either way. But that is Replacing a Scar with Another is it comes from TikTok, from the comments on a video of a cover-up tattoo. And then it's like, that's just where that came from. And it's like, I was like,
sounds
that's
like religious massive,
yeah, it sounds like
it's brilliant.
Like ritual scarring or something. And I was like, all right, that sounds good. I'll write a song about this. But I think like in terms of that, it's like it's not trying to be like really obscure. It's just like very hard to explain like where all of this stuff comes from, and sort of narrow it down to like, oh, this is where I draw my influence from. It's like, okay, it's like at the same time, it's like these like weird things that I've heard over the years and like stuff that I've seen online, stuff that my friends are doing, stuff that people that I don't know are working with or aren't working with, and then being like, okay, why aren't they working with this thing? Like, let me look into this. And then that leads to something else. And I have no clue what I'm saying at this point, but yeah, I think in general, like my unintelligibility is not purposeful in this conversation either. And I think it's more of just hard to translate some of those thoughts directly. So then it's more of just like kind of leaving it there and then having, or just letting people have their own interpretations of what it is and what it isn't. And then you just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. And then just as like kind of a final question, actually, before we open things up to the audience, because this talk is called The Future of Sound, and we've talked a lot about, you know, your own sounds and how like they maybe bend conventions in a way or engage other media. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on like what the future of your individual sounds are, like the direction that it's heading in. And then also if you have any, I don't know, any thoughts on like trends that you've seen in experimental music scenes that you think can only grow.
That's a tough question, because I do feel like I'm at a time where I'm like, every day I'm like, I'm just going to quit music. I don't really know what the future of my sound is going to be.
Silence.
This is my official retirement statement. But I think it's more just, I mean, because I see myself as like I think, you know, in terms of like, well, previously being an editor and being a DJ and like now I'm actually a curator, but I do feel like a lot of what I like to do is put things together, and it's like put other people's music together and put other artists together. And yeah, I did start a label like 2 years ago, so I could basically do that. So I think like maybe collaborations are something that I didn't really do before, and that's something that I'm really enjoying now, is collaborating with friends who make very, very different music. And I feel like what comes out like is so much more like inspiring to me when we're like working together. And often these are quite like improvised kind of sessions. And I do feel like, you know, sometimes you look at the like festival lineups and stuff, and it feels like everything has to be person X, visual artist X, dancer X, lighting designer X, VR. Yeah. Straight from LA. Throwing some animals, and it feels like things have to be bigger and like bolder and more stuff. But I think that kind of like, it's a bit, I think it deprives people's work of like well, it's hard to translate what people are really trying to convey in those senses because I think they're so put together in an artificial way. But I think, if you're working with friends or like people that you just have some weird like mental connection with, even if it doesn't really come through that obviously, like in terms of like how you dress or how you speak or where you're from or whatever, I think that's what's really nice.
So you see collaboration, but not multi-hyphenates.
Collaboration in a more organic sense. I guess.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm more like I tend to take a lot of time with making music, and it's like not because of spending a lot of time with it, but rather not spending that much time with it. Like I'll have like a session where I'll start something and then it'll be like 6 months before I kind of get back to it, just because life is happening at the same time and I'm working on other stuff like mixing and mastering stuff for other artists or producing stuff for other artists. And then I feel like that has made it like my output quite slow in a sense. And then I have this like urge to just put stuff out as soon as it's done. So I think I'm sort of curious to kind of keep that sense of immediacy, like that is present in the moment that it's done, to kind of bring that to the creative process and like kind of make stuff come out faster that has happened closer to the release, so that it's like not these like 3 years between albums kind of thing, that it's just like I finished this, I'll put this out. And I did that with my last EP that I put out, Helix/Unravel, that I put out the EP was out 10 days after I finished the masters. So it's like just get out. In terms of like sonically, I think it's going to be, I feel like I'm like kind of falling in love with making club music again a bit more, but also I really like making pop songs, whatever that means in my context. But I really like singing. I really like harmonies and sort of working with sort of the tonality as opposed to like composing like notationally. So I think something like that. And then I have this one project that I actually got a grant for, and then I didn't make that project. I made something else. But it's like, it has more to do with like this like ritualistic or like durational sort of thing. And then I'm trying to figure out what that is and when that is. Konensäätiö, don't kill me. But I think collectively, I'm curious to see if because we talked about this quickly yesterday over coffee. I think it's interesting how like in general, like the tips for, or like the rules for making music or mixing or whatever is kind of based around music that isn't that prevalent anymore, or like isn't the way that people make music these days or listen to music these days. So then it's like, I feel like it's like I feel like those rules are going to be broken in like a very like definitive way. Whereas like before it's been more of like, oh, like if you want to mix your bass right or your drums right, you have to do this and this and this. And then now you're like hearing people doing like the actual opposite of what that is. So then it's like, just do kind of whatever. And I think that is going to be like an interesting transition within like not just experimental music, but in like popular music as well, to see how like, or just the, like, if you look at like people like Snow Strippers, for example, like very lo-fi stuff, but has blown up like massively. And like the same thing with like Salem back in the day was like unintelligible music, like poorly mixed, poorly produced. No shots fired. I love Pink Night. It's one of my favorite albums, but like it's not like by the standards of what electronic music sounded like at that time. Like it was like a full fuck you to that. So I feel like that's going to be like more prevalent now. And I'm curious to see what that means in terms of pop music.
Great. And then I think we have time for a couple questions. I'm not sure if
we're actually like for the next panelist, the Nino Protocol guys are a bit late, and I feel like you guys are in a good flow. So if you want to keep the conversation going, you're free to do so. We can also open the floor for questions. I'll let you decide. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess a lot of new people arrived during the panel as well. So I'll reiterate. We always have a Q&A round at the end of the panel. So if you have any questions, comments, feedback, I guess, like, we'll take anything. Yeah, Laura, go ahead.
Hello. I have a question about like staying true to yourself and kind of having integrity in the music that you make. I feel like with alternative electronic music, there's a bit of like an echo chamber of coolness where we see like the kind of bigger labels within alternative music like Year One or Pan or Post Isolation do like create like waves, and then smaller countries or labels start kind of doing the same thing, and their promo pictures look the same and the fonts they use look the same, and I feel like there's a lot of mimicry, which is also a form of flattery in a way. I understand that. But how do you kind of see yourself and your capabilities of being resistant to kind of visually what's going around you, as well as sonically? Do you see it as something that's difficult to go against, or does it come naturally? Like, how do you feel about uniqueness in your projects?
Chirp, chirp. I think it's something that, at least for me, comes like pretty naturally to just having this problem with authority in general. Just kind of like pushing back against the existing sort of versions of things, and then trying to see how you can like do something different with like the same sort of tools. But I think maybe the thing that I'm more concerned with personally is the fact that, like I mentioned with like the influences before, is like you could like, in terms of like DJing or visuals or like whatever it is that you're working with, like you could give you could give us to like the same 10 tracks to DJ, for example. And we could play them in sequence like the same way, but or like the same sequence, but we would mix them entirely differently because we have like a different approach to that. So I think even getting like the same, and that'll be different. Like you could like tell like, okay, this is Flora's set and this is my set kind of thing. So I feel like that's something that should be a focus in like how you sort of use those things. Like you can see the font, you can see the colors being used, you can see the lenses used on the cameras, you can like look at all that stuff, like very like study it, but like study it to applicate it in your work, as opposed to study it to replicate it. I don't know, something like that.
I mean, I think it depends what you're trying to achieve, like as an artist or musician or creative, I guess, because I do feel like it can be quite draining when you see all the same kind of aesthetic and the same sounds and the same people associated, and it's very like trend driven, and it feels like you need to have these kind of like ticks next to your name that's like really, in who you're associated with, to kind of qualify as like part of this. And I feel like maybe a lot of people feel like success is based off that. It's like if you've released with this label played here, these clubs or whatever. But I feel like that's exactly the kind of thing that really puts me off doing anything ever. Like, and I think it's like it really is literally like the most unheard of things, or like the most niche things that live in their own world that interest me in terms of like music and culture. Like last year or the year before, I went to Thailand for the first time. I went to Bangkok and I met this artist, Tanat Taradakorn, who I think he did something at CTM now, and he did something at Gasworks in London. But he was doing this research on like these motorbike gangs in like the north of Thailand, who literally like build speakers into their motorbikes, and they have like a genre that is like basically the music that they play off the motorbikes. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that, someone at CTM will be like, oh my God, let's get the show over. But like, I think, in its own existence, I feel like that's what's really interesting before it gets co-opted by like bigger and trendier stuff, I guess.
Yeah, any other questions? I'll get over there just a second.
What's that genre called?
I don't know.
Something you need to look into it. That sounds awesome.
Yep. Hello, I'm Atte, and I've been thinking about the places and like the mental states that we experience electronic music in. And now when the nightlife is shifting, at least in Helsinki, and I think like in everywhere, like nightlife is not that like financially stable anymore. And like how do you see that like in your own work? Like is it at least there are like some struggles to find places to play, but like do you take account the alcohol alcohol in your sets, and would you like to curate your sets like in terms of like some MDMA experience, like which could be like the next thing? I don't know. Do you get the idea? Like and like is the alcohol a thing that you take into account, and would you like to curate music for other stuff?
I mean, I'm down to do like a espresso martini DJ set for sure. But yeah, I think that's like we talked about this quickly yesterday about like the Finnish club culture specifically being like, because I feel like there hasn't been that long of a history with it, and there's not been like a specific struggle behind it. Like it's not related to like ethnic minorities coming together to create like a scene, or like gender minorities, or like class struggle. Like it's not built around anything like that. It's like it's kind of been a byproduct of selling alcohol, where it's become like this thing. Like you go to clubs and then it's like people go there to drink. Like, should we go to drink to Kaiku, or should we go to drink at Post Bar? And then it's like, oh, music is happening, kind of thing. Like it's like an afterthought. So I feel like that's been like a very big part of it's really affected like the way that you kind of have to approach doing events here, because you have to kind of think about how to keep people in the room, like, and keep them buying alcohol for it to be viable. And then I'm not necessarily always that, for example. So then it's like it affects bookings in that sense, which I'm fine with. But I think in terms of like different substances, could be interesting to see. Or yeah, this reminds me of like there's been like spiders that have been fed different drugs, like and weed and then MDMA, and then it's shaped the way that they make their webs. Like weed made them like make super like lazy, kind of like very simple, just bare bones webs, and then like different like more psychedelic drugs made them like go super crazy, like symmetrical kind of things. So I think that would be interesting to see, like a club night based around that, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's happening, but not as like a collectively curated or legally transferable concept. So yeah, I think it's happening. I think if drugs get legalized, hopefully soon, for everyone who needs them, I think it'll definitely be like a bigger thing as well, to sort of think about the audience in terms of like what your audience is, kind of what their drug of choice is, to sort of like, okay, like how do we incorporate that into the space? Like if you, I don't know, I'm just thinking of like people being like super tripped out, and then you like come into a room with like crazy visuals and like just super intense stuff, scary visuals, like you said, and then just like losing their minds. Yeah, which could be good as well, like a ayahuasca ceremony kind of thing.
Ayahuasca at the club.
Yeah. Club ayahuasca opening soon.
Yeah, we have time for one last quick question, I guess. If anyone has a question they want to ask, or a comment, or
feedback,
wants to say something.
We love feedback.
If there isn't anyone, because we still have 10 minutes to kill, I have a quick question for Nori, for you. I was very intrigued about you talking about Helsinki and Lunch Meat Festival, and about I think you used the words cultivating experimental like music culture, and you also talked about kind of like the paradox, or maybe Flora, actually you did, about like when you try to cultivate this like experimental music culture, you kind of end up killing the baby, so to speak. Yeah, so I guess my question is like, what should we be doing if, for example, I am someone interested in like kind of laying like fertile ground for these types of like scenes to exist and like to grow them and things like that. Like, is it even possible, or should it be like a kind of thing where you don't even try and it has to just happen on its own? Or yeah, what do you think?
I think like a big part for me has always been like, because like there has been like these certain concentrations around like labels or venues or stuff like that. So I feel like it's been, for me at least, I've been kind of turning inwards in that sense, where I've like kind of started focusing on like my sort of immediate like community, and then kind of working through that, and then like letting that inspire another community for them to start doing their own thing, as opposed to being like, okay, we're gonna make the Helsinki label, or like the Helsinki sound, or like not trying to do like this like collective like rebranding, which fucking sucks to begin with. So I think it's like more of like just being like, okay, so what can we do together? And then we do our thing. We sit on Persian rugs, talk about the future of sound, and then someone's like, oh shit, I want to talk about the past of sound. I don't know. I'm just saying shit at this point. But I think like in terms of just inspiring other people and not trying to like, not trying to be like sort of, I'm trying to think of like a specific word, but like not trying to be like the spearhead of stuff in a way, and like not trying to be like, okay, we are like the frontier label, or like the frontier club, or the frontier like experimental whatever, and like rather have it be a thing that exists side by side with multiple other things, and then have it, just kind of have stuff feed each other, and like not being afraid of things bleeding over to other stuff, and like people working together. And I guess that's the biggest thing that's like shifted here specifically. Like there used to be like, maybe due to like the dubstep scene, the local dubstep scene as well, there's been like a lot of like,
Is there a big dubstep scene there?
There used to be, now, I mean, it is still here. Like it is, you'll see like hoods on in the clubs. Not, yeah. But I think it's like, like in the early 2000s, 2010s, like it was a lot more prominent. There was like bigger like club nights based around like dubstep and like UK garage and stuff like that. And a lot of like producers from here, like Desto, for example, who's playing at Post Bar tonight, like he's been like DJing with Skepta and stuff like that. Like stuff has like really like been a part of like the general grime and like dubstep scene as well. So it's not been like a completely separate thing. But I feel like with that scene, there was like a very strong sense of gatekeeping, or in terms of like, oh, like this is our crew and we do our thing, and then we don't go to other people's parties kind of vibe. Like it's been like very secluded. And I think that's kind of shifted to where it's like now people are playing like each other's events. People are going to each other's events like to support, and sort of not trying to be like, okay, like we want everyone to come to our party, but we will not go to other people's parties. Which is like, which used to happen. And that was so fucking boring. Because I'd go to everyone's parties and be like, oh, this is sick. Like, this is really cool. And then people would not come to our parties. And it's like, okay, like, it's whatever. But it's like, I think it's like, it should be like reciprocal to like, kind of like help out for like laying the fertile ground. I think it's like important to be like sharing what you have, like in terms of resources or connections or just like physical support of being in the room, especially when the scene is so small. Like we have so little people here, and of that subset of people that live in Helsinki, there's like a small like portion that listens to electronic music as like because they like electronic music, and from that there's like experimental music, and then from that is like us.
Yeah.
So it's like, should we start like fighting over 150 people, or should we just like kind of band together and like
become a family?
Because like the fucking alcohol guys are gonna be there, so like that'll be like 50% crowd. Yeah. Post bar is 250 capacity. We have 150 people of our people, and then 100 alcohol guys.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fine.